So my name's Lorna, and I'm going to tell the story of my grandfather, Fred Gray. So Fred Gray was a private during the Second World War, and he was drafted to North Africa in 1941. During his time in North Africa, so it was the first half of 1942, he was captured and he became a prisoner of war. I think it's important to remember these conditions that these poor prisoners of war were subjected to was very poor. And it all started in North Africa. He was then transported through the sea to south of Italy. He landed in a place called Brindisi and was then, I assume, transported via train up to outside of Naples, a place called Caserta. The reason we know about him being a prisoner of war was actually we found 2 letters. So reading the letters for the first time, I'm a history student, so I was completely astounded that first of all we've got these letters and just very emotional. My grandfather in the letters is very kind of chipper, he's, "Oh Tira, you wouldn't recognise me now, I've got a moustache," that's kind of what he says, and he just asks after her family. They're only very, very short, I think they get about 20 lines, and we've got 2 letters from the period. So yeah, it's very, I'm not going to worry those people at home, I'm okay, I hope you guys are doing okay. That's really the essence of the letters, I think. Yeah. And towards the end of the war, that's when the Germans knew that the camps were going to be liberated by the Russians, so they sent them on the death marches. They got them to leave the camp and walk, and they walked hundreds of miles, and you have to remember it's the depths of winter, everything's frozen, they're wearing not very warm clothing. And the story that I know is that the men would fall out of line to run to cabbage fields to just get cabbage stumps, and they were risking their lives for this. Another one was they ran to a horse carcass, and they were, getting what they could from a horse carcass. It was harsh. So he did survive, and once he got ready to go home, I recently found out that they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's no space on this Lancaster, you're going to have to wait for the next one." And my grandfather said, "Absolutely not, get me out." So he was a little guy, and they put him in the gun bubble of a Lancaster, and he came over from Europe in the gun bubble of the Lancaster. It's such an emotive subject, and you just kind of, in terms of what to say to him, I think you'd almost just want to hug them and just kind of say, "Well done, but how on earth did you survive that?" And it's just thank you, and just all those. Yeah, it's very difficult, I think, to comprehend what he went through. I think as we move away, as the war starts becoming not living memory, as we start losing those last people that fought, we need to be the carriers of the message of what happened, because ultimately we learn from history, and if we forget, then we're going to forget the lessons that we learned.